Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Ruby's Room. Today, as per usual, I am talking to one of your favorite content creators, and this week we have Jeff. Hi.
Hello.
Yes.
Hey.
So, who are you? For like the people who may not know you, this is your chance. Introduce yourself. Who is Jeff?
Who is she? Who is she? So yes, I'm Jeff. I am a writer. I am a Twitch streamer. I mostly stream story-driven games. I also really like to play horror games, and I really like a lot of different Nintendo franchises. So those are like my favorite genres and what I like to put into my channel. Um, Part of the LGBTQIA plus community. What
Yo,
up? Um,
yes.
and I've been a gamer for like God, 21 years.
Oh my
So
God,
yeah,
yes.
this has been a big part of my life for a long time. So it definitely heavily influences a lot of things in my life for sure.
Yeah, awesome, for sure. Like, speaking, we're already getting into the influences and the inspirations. So, I'm gonna do what I usually do. And you guys know this is episode 5 by now. So, I usually like to take my time machine that I don't have, but I will do it and go back to the baby years of Jeff and try to get a little understanding of like what inspired you, who inspired you.
Baby years, yes.
Yeah, so growing up, what were the inspirations for Jeff, for baby Jeff?
For baby Jeff, it's. I feel like I mostly lived in like worlds of fiction when I was younger.
Yeah.
So a lot. I watched a ton of anime growing up.
Ooh.
So I think um, many people know I love Sailor Moon.
Oh, you
So I
do?
mean,
Wow, I
yeah,
was
I
not
mean, like
aware.
it's if it's not obvious that I don't like love Sailor
Right?
Moon,
Like, I don't know,
I
like.
have Sailor Moon memorabilia all over my desk. For anyone who's just listening, I just pulled up a Heart Moon rod. I
Yes.
have Sailor Mars, Sailor Pluto's right over here in the corner of my desk. Like it was one of the first animes I watched, and I just remember like being captivated by like the visuals and just something about it. And I just kept like watching other anime and stuff as I went on. Final Fantasy was a big influence for me as well.
Yes.
I loved the worlds and the characters in it. So yeah, it's like it's hard to connect like certain people that were
Mm-hmm.
influences to me, but definitely a lot of stories that I played in video games growing up certainly influenced um, kind of the stories I like to tell and the stories I still like to consume today.
Yeah, for sure. Like I can totally relate on that. Like we're really similar in that. Like I growing up, it was definitely like people like ask like sometimes as a joke I will answer that like Sailor Moon was my gay awakening. Like the transformation scene, I
Hmm.
was like, that was me. That was me. Like that was me becoming like I would get my life with Sailor Moon. Like every time they would transform, all that stuff, and like all like similar anime like that. Like there was like the card capture Sakura,
Yeah.
and like so many of like that genre that made my life. Like I was like, yes, Queen, I want to be that. I want to do that. I was like,
My
yes,
God.
so
I had so many,
iconic.
so
Yeah,
much iconic.
and honestly, like if anybody knows me, they know that like Final Fantasy is always like if anybody asks me about video games, I'm like Final Fantasy this, Final Fantasy that, because it was
Oh
like
yeah. Oh
even though
yeah.
I had been playing video games for a while, like I grew up with like Sonic and like platformers like that. Like Final Fantasy was that moment where I was like, oh wow, this is what games can be, and this is like a whole other like level of like that genre that I never even thought about. Like it was so mind blowing and like I just love the character designs. I love like the
Yeah.
soundtrack. I my first one was 8. So I got like yeah, ooh,
Ooh.
yeah. I got like Ultimecia was like fashion goddess queen. Um
Uh-huh.
like all the different sorcerers actually. I was like,
Right.
"Yes, they're so
Oh yeah.
iconic." Well, except
Yeah.
that
That.
one that takes like Renoa and like she like is poking her head out of like her body. That was disgusting. I was like,
Yeah. No. Please no.
yeah, I was like, no, I don't need this in my life. But
No.
yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely can relate with you on that, on like getting the inspiration from that. So, as you mentioned earlier, you're a writer. And by the
Yes.
way, I love the cameo. If you guys are not watching the video version, we're getting a cameo from a little kitty, so cute. Oh my God.
Hi.
So
So
gorgeous.
he couldn't help himself. He's like, listen, you're
Yes.
here, you're talking to somebody, I have to be there.
I have to be there. I have to be a part of it. Yes. Uh,
Here he
but,
is.
but yeah, as you said, like you're a writer. So like, how did you like start like super young as well, or how did that begin for you?
So my initial start to writing is I always find it really funny because I don't know if anybody remembered what Gaia Online was. Um,
Ooh,
it's like essentially it was basically MySpace for anime nerds.
that's cute.
So on Gaia Online, there were a lot of forums, and I noticed there were some forums with role playing, and I didn't really know what that was.
Mm-hmm.
But after I started going in, it's basically people, creating their own characters and writing as those characters and just
Right.
interacting with other people. So I was like, oh, okay, this sounds like fun. So I started doing that. And there were some role play forums where people were kind of dying off, and like I would end up just interacting with myself
Right.
as characters. And I was like, okay, I actually kind of really enjoy this. So then I started doing it on my own. Um, I want to say like my junior year of high school. And
Cool.
I started a novel, but it wasn't something that was going to ever see the light of day. Looking back on
Right.
it, I was just like, this is for me and me only. But then I realized I really enjoyed it. So then I ended up going to school for it, majoring in English with emphases in creative writing and literature. So
Nice.
then since then, I've just been writing not a lot of things that have necessarily gotten published or any like anyone's ever really read, but definitely been still trying to hone my craft and get more works out there.
Yeah, awesome. That's super cool. And when it comes to writing, do you have the same inspirations that like gaming and anime? Like, are they still your inspirations, or do you draw from like different like mediums and sources when it comes to that?
So a lot of my writing has kind of evolved a little bit in the sense that I still kind of take elements from those fantasy sort of aspects, but a lot of what I like to write now too is creative nonfiction,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot more like kind of memoir, kind of pulling from personal experiences. Um, so depending on what it is, the inspiration can kind of be a little different. The novel I'm currently working on is urban fantasy. I'm right now in my head. I'm kind of describing it as like Sailor Moon, but like slightly darker, like not
Ooh,
too much darker, but like just a little bit. So yeah, the fantasy elements come in every once in a while, and like kind of my video game experience. But
right.
I definitely like to pull and like I'm inspired more by people as opposed to like worlds now, I guess.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's awesome, and definitely really cool to like get an understanding of like where inspiration can come from, because obviously,
Right.
even though it's obviously still a creative medium as music is and as like streaming is and content creation in general, but obviously since I don't have that experience with writing, I wouldn't like know. So it's cool. It's cool to know that, and it's really important that you are like honing your craft and like developing every day and all that stuff. It's really nice. Um,
Right.
and how do you do that though? Like, how does one go from like doing it for like, I guess, a hobby or like for an hour, let's say after work or whatever, and then to like being like, you know what, I actually want to take this seriously and I want to like keep
Mhm.
learning and keep improving and all that stuff. Like, what advice would you give?
So it's different for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, I've noticed taking it from a hobby to something I definitely want to make a career out of. It's really making the effort to just write. Like
Mm-hmm.
even on days where you might not be feeling it, like you might be sitting in front of your laptop or whatever you use to write, and you might just be like, ugh, I don't know what to write. Like write anything. Force yourself to just like write 200 words of something. That's not
Mm-hmm.
that much when you think about it.
Yeah.
Just of anything, just to like get your brain moving, just to like get something out there that like will make you think in the way that you need to when you're writing. Because when you're trying to do it as a hobby, like you might find something that inspires you to write something, and you'll be like, oh, I feel like writing now, and like no matter what, it's all valid. It's all
Right.
valid, whatever you want to do with writing. But I feel like if it's something that you want to start taking really seriously, maybe not necessarily every day you should be writing, but because that's not necessarily feasible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but definitely trying to set aside time in your day to actually write and do something that will, be considered practice. Because no one's just like born good at a certain craft. Like I
Right.
certainly was not good at writing when I first started my very first novel.
Right.
So it's something you got to keep doing because you'll figure out what your written voice is, and it's just something you have to figure out for yourself as you keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's funny how much crossover there is between that and streaming because
Hmm.
in a lot of ways, like some people will look at someone who's very established and they will be like, wow, they have such a good personality. They just know how to do things on camera. They just have everything
Right, right,
together. But like a lot of the times people don't really know that these people have been doing this for years and they've
right,
had that practice, and a lot of them didn't even start on Twitch. A lot of them probably started on YouTube and they were there
right.
for years before they even started streaming. So and I mean there are people who are just like naturally like they have a really good personality and they just know what they're doing, but it is very rare to have someone who just like, has everything together from like day one. So it's important for
Right.
people to like who are getting started at something to not get discouraged because they see someone like already at like chapter 10 when they're still on chapter 1. You know what I mean?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, it's
For sure.
very very important. But speaking of streaming, obviously another, thing that came into your life.
Hmm.
When did that get started for you?
So I want to say my first, when I started streaming regularly, because I did have like one stream that I tried to do, like, oh my God, in like 2014 or something, but it was with a really old MacBook Pro, and it was the choppiest stream you
Oh
probably ever would
no.
have seen on Twitch, and I learned that it wouldn't work. So
Yeah.
I was like, we'll put streaming on the back burner for now.
Right.
So eventually, when I got my PS4, which had the direct broadcasting feature, I was like, why not? Let's try it. I was terrified to play Resident Evil 7 by myself. So
Oh.
I was like, let's bring some friends in here and do it. So then I did that, and it just turned into something that I was enjoying. I was doing YouTube videos before then because I
Oh.
liked having some sort of video content. I liked doing stuff with like video and having some sort of direct access to an audience.
Mhm.
Um, so I was doing that for a while, but it was kind of one of those things where like I was doing it to do it and not because there was some sort of enjoyment after I was done creating a thing there.
Mhm.
Whereas with streaming, after a stream, usually I'm like, yeah, that was great. I felt great about what I just did. Um,
Yeah.
with vlogging, it wasn't the same. So after I started enjoying streaming, I was like, let's try to make this a more regular thing. And since then, pretty much, I mean, we all have our ups and downs, but mostly Twitch and streaming has been just such a positive and amazing experience for me.
I can totally agree with that. Like, actually
Mhm.
did not know about your YouTube background, so bad. Shame on me for not doing my research. Honestly,
Yeah.
I don't do research. Is it bad? Like, I don't do research when I do an interview because I don't want to like be so prepared to the point where I'm like, I know exactly every single question I'm gonna ask and your answers. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather just
Right,
like
right.
go into it like obviously knowing the person, but not fully getting like a full on background check.
Right. No, I mean, YouTube isn't something I talk about a whole lot just
Yeah.
because it's something that definitely I just was not, I lost the drive and like the passion for it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just not something I really bring up
Yeah.
because it's like I will say like I'm grateful for what I did though because it did give me a lot of like skills and definitely on camera experience because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's the one thing it gave me is I jumped into streaming already having that on camera comfortability because I feel like people will come into streaming as their very first thing, and that could be a lot because you're
Mm-hmm.
streaming and also you're on camera. So it's like
Right.
a lot. It's like sensory overload, kind of being like people are watching me right now, and I'm live. And but for me, I was like, I already know what I look like on camera. I already know
Right.
what I sound like. That's not something that I'm anxious about anymore. It's just now I'm live. So
Right.
I had less to worry about going into streaming than like a lot of other beginners might have.
Right. That's something that we definitely I actually touched upon last time as well with Toph because he also had a similar experience where he started on YouTube and then he ended up moving to Twitch, and I totally relate on that as well because I don't know how people do it. I don't know how people get started with streaming and then they just like get so overwhelmed by chat and then by their own
Mm,
appearance, by how they sound. Like with me
right.
for YouTube, it was good that it was like pre-recorded because I was able to get a lot of my bad habits on camera corrected, or I could edit them out, and then by the time I started streaming I wouldn't really do them anymore because I already,
Right.
like you said, I already knew how I looked like, how I sounded, all that stuff. And
Mhm.
I've always found it way more rewarding to do this live because
Yes.
you get to talk to people even if you're just getting started and you only get one person. It's like that one person is like way better than like the nobody that you have in your room when you're recording
Yeah,
something. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's something like the connection you make with that one person
Mm-hmm.
will show how you can make connections with even more people. Like I think we definitely get so focused on, oh, I only had an average of like 2 viewers today, or like
Right.
we get so focused on the numbers, but like
For sure.
you don't think about the fact that you're connecting in a way with those those people that you view as so few, but like they see you as something, as like a good part of their day, and like
Right?
if you keep like cultivating that connection, like eventually it's going to grow into something even bigger.
Exactly. Like for sure. Like I was actually I was talking to someone recently and I told them like, "Oh, I do streaming and stuff like that." And obviously they were asking like pretty normal questions like, "Oh, do you make money from it? How many people watch you?" Stuff like that.
Mm,
And I was like getting a little embarrassed. I was like, "Oh, I only get this certain amount." But he was like, "Oh, that's fine." Like he was like, "Oh no, that's really
right.
cool. That's like I was like, "Oh, yeah, that is actually really cool." Like just
Hmm.
because like I'm comparing myself to like other people doesn't mean that what I have is not, you know, worthy or is not like awesome in its own way, right?
Right, right. Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes we view like maybe where we want to be sometimes,
Yeah,
um as like the comparison for where we feel we are like right now, so we're
for
like, oh.
sure.
And yeah, like no, and like definitely like even changing your language, not saying I only had something like this, like just stating it as a fact, like
Yeah.
this is how many people normally watch me. Like
Mm-hmm.
that'll come off as like some, that'll have a certain impression on them. I think that like streaming, like it's not something that anyone feels like they can just do. So no, like no matter what your audience size is, like I feel like even just putting yourself out there onto a stream is
Mm-hmm.
an incredible feat.
Absolutely, absolutely. It did give me like a new perspective, and then as I was telling this person about streaming, the more and more I was like, yeah, this is why I do it because I was telling them like, oh, like a lot of people have like me a part of their morning routine, and like
Hmm.
they have their tea while they're watching me, or they have breakfast while they watch me, and stuff like that. And
Right.
it's like that's actually something that you can't pay for. That's something that you could never like even dream of. It's like wow, like that is actually like people are doing that, you know. And
Right. Exactly.
you know, it's hard to forget that sometimes, but it's really important to remind ourselves of that as well.
Hmm. For sure.
So you started with Resident Evil on your streams, and you still
Hmm.
do a little bit of horror, but your main
Hmm.
focus is like story driven games. So right,
Yes.
yeah. So how did you like? Was it ever like a conscious decision of like this is my brand and we're only doing this, or is it just something that you gravitate towards naturally?
Um, it's definitely the kinds of games I enjoy playing the most. And I definitely have the mindset of if you're not enjoying yourself on Twitch, it's you're probably not gonna get like the attention that you're hoping for. Um, so I um, I don't. Oh, it's like I don't necessarily like stick 100% to games that are like super story heavy, but I definitely really enjoy games that tell a story. And I
Mm-hmm.
think games can tell a story in so many different ways. Like for anybody who may have heard of the game Grease, that told a story with like literally zero dialogue. Like there was just this whole like artistic adventure of this girl who was just like had a really traumatic thing happen to her, and like so like I think what we view as like games with stories like is not always the same, because like
Mm-hmm.
I even had like a giant phase on my channel where I played Stardew Valley. It was like
Right.
at least 2 times a week I was like, Stardew Valley, I love this game, and like there are stories and stuff to consume in there, but
Mm-hmm.
I think like stories when it comes to gaming are like also like things that we bring to it. So I just a lot of my writer side just comes into like play when I'm when I'm playing video games. So yes, I definitely like to follow stories because I think it can create such a like fun discussion with whoever's in your chat.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I really like stories.
No, I fully understand you. Like, um, do you ever have those moments? I definitely know I do. I call it the streamer guilt, where you just like
Mm,
you randomly like you find the game on sale or something, and you're like, oh, let me get that. I've been wanting to get that, and then you sort of like start playing it, and then you're like, oh no, I shouldn't. Like, I should share this with my community. Like, what am I doing? And then
mm,
you don't play that game, and then you have to wait until you play it on camera because you're just like, like my community deserves to, you know what I mean? Like, they deserve to like
right,
to get like for me to share this story with them. Like, do
right.
you ever
No, it's
have
funny.
that?
Kind of. I actually, what's funny is I actually have like the opposite. Like I have the same problem, but like opposite in a sense. So the
Okay.
way it works for me is sometimes I'll like get a game where I'm like, oh, I should stream this because like I'm really excited for this game. But then it'll be like one of those games where like I get super in the zone
Mm,
and like just like get super chill and like very not talkative.
right.
So like I'll be like, oh wait, I shouldn't stream this because now I'm like not saying anything.
Right.
So like I think I have, yeah, definitely the opposite for me. But there are definitely a lot of games that I, prefer playing off stream as opposed to on stream.
Hmm. How do you make that like distinction between what you choose to play on stream and what you choose to play offline?
I think it's definitely in how what the kind of mindset I think that the game puts me in. Like when Super Smash Bros. Came out, the most recent one, I decided to stream it a little bit, but I kind of noticed that it was one of those games that really, really takes me out of like myself in a sense where like I'm focusing so hard on what I'm doing in the game that
Hmm.
like nothing else is really happening.
Right.
Definitely games where like I'm really focused, that can really kind of act as like a means of escape. I think those are definitely the games that I like to play offline because when it comes to streaming, I definitely focus way more on chat than I usually do on the game.
Right.
So for me, I want the game that I play to at least spark some sort of discussion. Whereas a lot of games, unless I'm doing like some sort of community game night, the games that I play offline definitely are like ones that like just kind of take me out of like whatever I may be feeling at the moment, like if it's a stressful day or whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally get you. Like, that's how I make my distinction as well. Because, like, as much as I do enjoy those moments where I'm playing like a multiplayer game with my community, I do reserve those games for off stream because it is something like, first of all, I just get annoyed on stream because I'm paying attention to chat and I'm doing horrible at the game. So that's not
Right,
good.
yeah.
And then
Right.
like it's good like for me to have like that, like I can focus on the game when I'm not streaming because I don't have a chat to keep up with. I don't have like people to talk to. So like I could still like hang out with my community and stuff like that offline playing a game off stream, but definitely I do try to avoid those because it turns into me like not being good at talking and not being good at the game. So it's like, what am I being good
Right.
at that moment? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, there are so many times I played Mario Kart on my channel, and I was like, I can probably talk and play this game at the same time, no big deal. And like I think most races I got like 8th or below.
Oh
So I was
no.
like, apparently, no, I can't talk and play this game at the same time. Whatever. But it
Right?
was still fun. I think the ultimate like thing is like as long as you're having fun.
Exactly. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's like authenticity and having fun. Like people like say that that's like the worst advice to give, but honestly, like it's not. Like because like if you're not having fun and if you're not like being authentic, then what's the point of having like the perfect brand that will grow your
Mm,
channel? You know what I mean? It's like
right.
you'll get somewhere
Well,
where you're going to be miserable, right?
right. Well, I think what I noticed about that kind of advice, especially as I've been going on in Twitch, is I'll definitely notice like which games I play that like are not resulting in as much growth.
Mhm.
Like maybe I won't get as many followers that day, or maybe people won't tweet about that stream as much. But I think if you're going to be looking for games that will help you grow, you definitely want to like still look for a game that you're like passionate about.
Right.
You don't want to like sit there playing Fortnite if you hate it,
Right.
that's just not how it works. So yeah, I think bottom line, you definitely have to enjoy what you're doing on Twitch. But yeah, there's always still those little things where like there are certain games that help you grow a little more. But yes, bottom line, like pick games that you enjoy, because when you're having a fun time on stream, people are going to see that you're having a fun time and they're going to want to be there because you got to convince them that you're having a fun time.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. Like, I've seen people make the mistake of, like, they'll be like, okay, people really like it when I do. I'll just say, I'm not going to use any of my usual examples, so I'll say like a random game. People really like it when I do Overwatch. And
Mm-hmm.
they think, and usually it works out because they enjoy that game, but there's always like those few days where you can tell that they're not really that into it, and they still do it because
Right.
it's like they're like, oh, it's what I have to do, or it's what my community wants. And then I notice that pattern of like them doing that and then them feeling even worse because it's not working out for them like they thought it would. So they're like, so I'm
Right.
not getting the viewership and I'm not having fun, and they're like in the worst mood and you can tell it on their face. And it's like, well, it's maybe because your community like just likes to see you having fun. And of course, like
Yeah.
usually you enjoy playing that game. Overwatch usually gives you joy, but like not every single day, maybe. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
sometimes that's just not gonna do it for you, and it's fine.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you definitely. Yeah. You can't like appear, and it seems like such like a non-authentic way to be, but like you can't appear miserable on stream,
Right?
because like
Yeah.
in some kind of sense when you're streaming, you're almost like selling some sort of a fantasy, like
Yeah.
because you're like, I am feeling good and I'm trying to, because that's like for me, I definitely like I'm trying to keep it like a cozy and positive and warm space. That doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that like we don't have our bad days, but like
Yeah.
I don't want people to like come to my stream to be like, oh my god, I left his stream feeling crappy. um,
Exactly.
so like on a sense, like I want my stream content to be something that I feel passionate about giving. Because if you're not passionate about the content you're putting out, like how are you going to expect people to feel as passionately about supporting it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's totally like that's so true. I've heard someone refer to content creation as, and not content creation, content creators as lighthouses. And I was like,
Hmm.
interesting. And they explained it by being like, we attract people to us. We're like, by
Right.
us like if we're radiating, people that maybe are having a hard time will come to you. People who
Right.
need advice will go to you, or people who just need to get distracted from a very shitty day, they will just be like, oh wow, like that, this is someone I need to watch right now because they're gonna make me laugh, they're gonna make me happy, they're gonna make me, even like if none of that, like even just a little bit distracted, that's, I feel like what, like we're doing our job if we do that, you know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I this is like a question that I feel like everybody asks, but it's, I do like asking it too. So like, what is one piece of advice that you wish you could have given yourself when you first started streaming,
Ooh.
that
Ooh.
obviously
That's a
people who are starting now, like they could take that advice, you know what I mean? So it's like, what advice do you have for people starting out? that you could have given yourself?
Start making friends. Start making friends in the community, like any communities that like you go watch. And that doesn't necessarily mean like making friends for the sake of like having them support you, but like
No, 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 no.
just yeah, like no, like you want to like start interacting with other streamers and like or interacting with other just communities in general because I think um I feel like a lot of my success and my growth started coming from when I was, genuinely going into communities with streamers I enjoyed and just getting to know people and, getting to know the streamer. And not necessarily in the sense that I'm like, hi, I'm a streamer. I'm here to talk to you as a streamer. But more so just to get to know them as people and to get to know, and for them to get to know me as a person. So I think a lot of times people, and I don't know exactly what the a lot of beginners go through right now, but definitely when it comes to like streaming, I feel like some people can get the attitude where like, they boot up their stream, they start going live, and they're like, why is nobody coming here? It's like, well, you haven't told anybody to come here.
Right.
Like you haven't really given them a reason to come here yet. And that's not to say that you're not a good content creator. It's just that it's not just going live and hoping for the best. Like it's
Exactly.
make a Twitter, make all these things, like get to know other streamers, like start building communities with all these people. Like once you start finding yourself in communities of people that you enjoy, not only would streaming become more fun for you, but like you giving your support to those people, like it will come back to you. But it needs to be genuine. Like you don't need to just
Yes.
do it just because like you feel like it's gonna like give you something in return. You just need to find people that you really enjoy and like start putting your love out there because it will come
Exactly.
back.
For sure. It's so important because a lot of people, you said really important words there, because a lot of people, they just hear the advice of, oh, you need to network and you need
Hmm.
to like know people. And that is true, obviously, but it has to be genuine. Like a lot of people get
Yes.
this idea like networking is like joining every single Discord that every single streamer has and then
Mm.
posting their link on it. Like not talking
Yeah.
in it, not doing anything, or they go into your stream and they do the not obvious self promo, but they will be like, oh, I played this too the other day with my, you know what I mean, like they
Mm.
will be like, they will throw hints here and there that they're like, I'm a streamer too, hey, watch
Right.
me as well, I'm also fun to watch. Which, sometimes people don't do that out of like bad intentions or anything, but sometimes they do. Or sometimes they think
Right.
that's how you do it, that they're just like, oh yeah, I need to put myself out there, and that means that I need to tell the world I'm a streamer.
Right. And I mean, it's not to say that that advice won't work at some point. It's just you definitely have to like not have that be like the impression that you're giving people is that I only want promo.
Yeah.
Like if you're someone that's coming around a community for a while and then you say that you're a streamer, like that's one thing because like people have already gotten to know who you are, and if they
Yeah.
like who they've seen, then they'll be like, oh my god, that's so cool that you're going to start streaming. Like I would love to
Right.
come see your stream sometime. Like because you've already given them an impression that you're a cool, fun person, and that you wouldn't say that you're streaming just as a means of self promo. More like maybe like I'm so excited that I'm starting like finally doing this thing.
Right. Yeah, totally. I found that I always say this, like I always end up watching people who, like, sometimes they're on my Discord but they never mention their own streams, and then I'll be on, like,
Mm.
I'll randomly look on the site and be like, wait, that person is streaming? Like I didn't even know they streamed. And then I go to their
Yeah, yeah,
stream
for
and I'm
sure.
like, and I feel more compelled to watch them because they don't have,
Mm.
they're not like shoving it down my throat being like, oh, I'm a streamer, or like, oh, I'm gonna start
Right.
streaming, or any of that stuff, which is also, it can be done right. As you
Hmm.
were saying, it can be done in a good and polite way. But like a lot of the times I end up just being like, oh wow, that person streams, that's really cool, and I'll go and check them
Right.
out, and I end up wanting to support them even more. So yeah, definitely make yourself known in communities, but not as someone who's thirsty for promo. Like make yourself known as someone who's genuinely supportive, as someone who's genuinely like nice and who wants to be
Hmm.
there. Like obviously, if you want to take it like, I guess, professionally, you could make like a conscious effort of being like, oh, if I'm gonna go watch a stream, let me say hi to them, because a lot of times you're a
Yes.
lurker and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna watch, but like they're not gonna know that you were there, you know what I mean? So like
Right.
make yourself known there, be like, hi, I'm like, I really like you, but actually mean it, please.
Actually mean it. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, don't just like pop around for the sake of being like I have to get into all these places so that my
Oh my
face is
God.
everywhere. Like no, like it's got to be genuine.
Yeah, for sure. Like I feel like I always like every 2 seconds I need to clarify because I have to do that myself. Like I end up watching a lot of people, but I end up catching myself being like, oh my God, you're not even saying hi to them. Like they're not gonna know you're here. Like you're excited to
Mm,
see your friend, but like they don't know that you're here, so they're not excited to see you. You know what I mean? So I'm like, yeah, I should say
right.
hi. I should like actually like make that effort to say the hi, not because I'm like, ooh, they're gonna give me a shout out, but like not like because I genuinely want to talk to them, and I'm like, I've been watching them for like 2 hours and I haven't said a thing. I'm so stupid. You know what I mean? Like I
Oh
do
yeah,
that
but
so
I mean,
often.
but see, the thing is, we also all have our days where we're just like, ugh, I can't bring myself to say hi, so I'm just gonna lurk for now. But yeah, no,
Yes.
definitely like going in those streams where you really enjoy the person. Like it doesn't, it 5 minutes of your day to like have a
Right.
small conversation with them while you're in their stream. Like maybe you have other things you got to do and maybe you have to lurk, but like just taking like a small amount of time to just chat with them for a little bit while they're streaming, like that shows that like you want to know them as a person as opposed to a streamer who has something to give you, you know?
Yes. Yes. 10 out of 10, honestly. Yeah. Agree. Uh, Magic Kyle actually said in the chat a really good piece of advice that is stopping them from streaming, actually. So I hope you're giving yourself that advice and you're listening to it. And they said it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't let the fear of imperfection stop you from starting. Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, yes.
That is that is it's perfect. That is beyond perfect because
Right?
my people who've been around for a long time, my very first streaming setup, I was sitting on my bed
Me.
with yeah, right? Like and my little PS4 camera was on the top of my TV pointing directly at me. It was a terrible setup. My
Oh my
back
God.
hurt every
Right.
time after a stream.
God.
I could only go for like 2 hours cuz I'm like I can't sit like this. Uh so and then I eventually evolved to my laptop being a yeah, I used my MacBook Air to stream for like almost a year before I
Yeah.
got a desktop. So like I had my little MacBook Air on like the corner of my bed, pointing facing me.
Yes.
I had one little LED light pointing at me.
That's
The
so
lighting was
funny.
awful. It was so bad.
Right.
And like I look back on it now being like, "Oh god, why did anyone watch me?" But they watched you because they like you. Like
Yeah.
you're putting something out that they enjoy. So don't let like and this is also something I feel too is like people like they want like the good camera, they want the good lighting,
My
they want it to
God.
look really good and it's like do you already have a webcam? Do you already have like I don't know, a lamp?
Right.
Like do you just have things that like you can already use to start streaming? Like don't spend all this money and don't put all these resources into something that you're not even sure if you're going to enjoy yet.
Right.
So like just if you have the means to go live, try it out. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody's gonna expect perfection from somebody who's just started streaming.
Yeah,
There's gonna be
exactly.
hiccups. There's gonna be so many different things, but um, you'll find out if you enjoy it, and people will find out if they enjoy you based off of some of your first streams.
Yeah, absolutely. And like this is something that I like telling people as well when you first get started, it's not to discourage them, but it's like there is actually a lot of freedom and a lot of I found a lot of freedom and a lot of peace of mind knowing that I wasn't going to be popping from
Mm,
moment, you know what I mean? Like I knew I had a leeway to like progressively get better, and it was
right.
fine. Like you know what I mean? Like I wasn't gonna get like 100 viewers and in my first year of streaming, but that weirdly enough gave me a peace of mind of like, you know what, like it's fine because your setup is a mess. You know what I mean? Like you're not where you want to be yet, but it's
Right.
fine because you're also you'll get there progressively and in your own pace, and people will eventually gravitate towards that, and then the production value can come afterwards. Like you don't have to have it
Yes.
all. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I definitely agree with that.
Especially nowadays, like people there's so many like like stream coaches and stream advice channels that people, even before they start streaming, they're already like looking up all the advice, like how do I get viewers, how do I get my chat to be active, how do I get a good camera, how do I get this. And it's like you like they're pretty much thinking about everything except for like their content or like who they are as a person,
Right.
or you know what I mean.
Right. I think, yeah, definitely. Like, I feel like people definitely try to research a lot what it's like to be a streamer, and I went into it with like barely any research.
Me.
Um, I mean, like personally, I feel like it's one of those things where like you should definitely go in. You may already have a lot of the tools that you need to be a successful streamer, so just boot it. Just yeah, just go live, see what happens, and if you feel like there are improvements you need to make, go from there. Because if it's something you enjoy, you'll be more passionate about doing the research to figure out what it is you need to do.
For sure, absolutely. We actually have a question from DNUG Life, and it's a really, really good question because it has to do with what we were just talking about, networking and stuff like that. So, what would you say are quote unquote red flags when trying to get to develop friends and network with other streamers?
Okay. Um,
Ooh, that's a good
that's a,
question.
that is a really good one. Um, what I've noticed is definitely kind of what we talked about earlier. People who are more willing to like just shove their link at you and like shove the fact that they're a streamer at you, as opposed to like trying to get to know you as a person. Those are definitely red flags to me.
Yeah,
Because to me, it's like um, if you're trying to use, the fact that, if you're trying to like use my audience and like use like my platform to grow yourself, as opposed to figuring out how we can help each other, that sends a certain signal to me that you're only trying to get something from me and not trying to help me out as well.
right.
Um, I feel like, and definitely some of the simple things too, I've noticed can be red flags. Like, you know, if you're in a Discord community and like people only are in there to post their self promo links, um, I'll I'll self drag myself a little bit. I used to do that
I mean, I feel
because
like all of us have at some point, right?
yeah, no, I mean, like, it's when I started streaming, I just saw people doing it. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is how you grow. So,
Yeah.
when I would go live, I would post my link like everywhere, being like, this is how you grow.
Me.
um, but then, like, I started thinking about it. It's like, I'm doing all this work to like sit here and post my link in places that I don't even really chat in very much. So it's like, you start as you do these things, you really need to be observant of like what you're doing and whether or not it's working.
Right.
So like if you're, you know, sure, you might be a beginner at networking and you might just keep telling people you're a streamer and linking your account to people, but it's like maybe if you're seeing that that's not doing any growth, figure out why.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it's not working. But
Exactly.
also definitely like the other red flag, the last one for me is like people who only use their social media to be like, I'm going live, or like I'm a
Mm.
streamer, or just
Yeah.
like literally just talking about streaming, or like the fact that they are a streamer. Cause like I feel like your social media can be such a good tool to show who you are, as opposed to
Right.
just talking about the fact that you're a streamer. So like
Sure.
I don't necessarily just only want to know you in the sense that you're a streamer. I want to know who you are and like why I can connect with you as a viewer.
Absolutely. Like, and it's something that I'm trying to be better at because sometimes I will look at my Twitter and I'm like, oh my god, like the last few posts are either me promoting something or me promoting my stream, or and like I'm like, where's like me though? Like, so like some random person is gonna go through my Twitter, like if they happen to find me, and be like, this person is only like, they only talk about Twitch, they only talk about going live. Like, why should I follow you? Why should I care about you when like being a streamer is not a personality trait. It's like, why should I care about you? You know what I mean?
Right. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that like managing your own social media account is easy by any means. So I'm not like trying to
No.
be like, it's easy, just start posting on social media. Like,
Right.
God, no, it's hard. So I mean, like, even if it's just like something I'm trying to implement too, is just like scroll through Twitter like for 5 minutes or even less a day. Like maybe you'll see something you want to retweet. Just click that retweet button,
Yeah.
quote the tweet with something how you feel about it. If you like have a random thought in a day, like um, tweet it.
Yeah.
um, just like, I don't know, like just anything. Like I think sometimes we can get in our own heads being like, and I'm definitely like this still too, where it's like your social media content needs to be like just as good as like maybe like how you feel about your streaming content, or you need to feel like your social media content needs to be at a certain level. But I think you definitely can use it a little less strictly than you may feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, but that's also all depends on what your social media goals are for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, someone, I remember someone mentioning that they don't see themselves as a Twitch streamer. They see themselves as a content creator, and they use every
Mm.
single piece of social media, whether it be YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it may be, whatever works for you, as an extension of that content creation. So, like, you're not
Mm.
necessarily doing, like, sometimes people, and I've done this before as well, where like you post a picture on Instagram and then you post that picture on Twitter, you post that picture on Snapchat, whatever it may be,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, that's kind of like the same as like when someone streams and they repost that whole stream on YouTube. It's like people are not going to watch that because, like, unless it's like a highlight reel or unless it's like you're capturing certain moments of the stream, because like I feel like every social media, people are looking for different things in the different social medias. So if you like see yourself as a creative person and as a content creator, and this is something that I need to also like follow myself, don't get me wrong, I'm not like preaching here and being like I'm better than you all, like make sure, like, make a conscious effort, like everywhere you post, like make sure that it has a purpose to it, it has like, it's gonna add something to who you are as like a brand, for the lack of a better word, you
Yes.
know what I mean?
Yes, like that. That's actually, I really like that you said that, adding to you as a brand, because I think, yes, I do notice that a lot of people use their social media in a sense where they use it as an extension of their content creation. And don't get me wrong, like social media is one of those things where it's whatever you bring to it. So if
Mm-hmm.
that's working for you, by all
Do it,
means, keep doing the
yes.
work to do that. So like, I'm not going to tell you like to use your social media in a very specific way because you're going to see what's going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes we can look at that and we can think, oh my God, I have to use my social media the same way. And it's like, no, you're what you bring to your presence is different.
Yeah.
So if, a cute selfie of you eating ice cream, is part of your brand, do it.
Yeah.
If, like you went to the grocery store and you fell on your face in front of like 20 people and like you want to tell that story, like that could be like fun. Like it personally, I like to use my social media in a way that makes me human.
Right.
Because I don't necessarily want people to like look at me as like this like epitome of like grace. Like I don't know. There's, like the word that's coming to me is like I don't want people to idealize me, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because while I'm proud of like the audiences I built and like my content creation as a whole, and I'm proud of what I've done so far. Like I don't want people to feel like I'm like better than what I actually may be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I am, at the end of the day, I am still human, and I want my social media and my brand to still feel like I'm approachable. I guess that's the word I was trying to think of.
Yeah, like for sure. Like, um, a lot of times people, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes people go into a stream and they have this impression, and it's not just for streaming, but they will have this impression of like, wow, this person has everything together. Or like someone
Mm,
asks you questions and you happen to be giving them advice because you have a platform and because you do have your own opinions and your own things that you go through, and you're like giving them advice or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, you're so smart, you're so this and you're so that. So
mm,
it's so important to keep social media a thing of like, oh yeah, I go out for coffee like you do, I go out for ice cream, I'm also clumsy, I also have
right,
opinions about this, you know what I mean? Like it's so important to like humanize yourself, like you were saying. I totally agree with that.
for
um
sure.
Someone asked a question. Okay, Hazel asked, "What advice do you have for someone who doesn't post a lot on social media?" I'm assuming this is like someone who doesn't post a lot who wants to maybe start posting more on social
Yes,
media.
that's definitely the impression I'm getting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I actually have about 2 years of professional social media experience. So I managed social media accounts for a few different companies.
Ooh.
So um, one thing I like to, especially nowadays, still stress too, is that um, you like user generated content is already there. So like people you may be following have already produced a thing, a
Mm-hmm.
tweet, um, quote it, share it, say how you feel about it. Like there's already so much content that you can share and like say how you feel about it. Um,
Right.
that can be super easy. You're already scrolling through Twitter or Facebook or whatever you're using, so why not share that thing that you are looking at for people so that they can get to know like things that you like, or like, if it's an article that you may have a feeling about, like share it and talk about why you feel a certain way about this.
For
Um,
sure.
and definitely, like, if you don't feel like you post a lot on social media, but maybe want to start posting more, kind of like I was saying earlier, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Kind of like
No.
streaming, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be perfect when you start. Just start talking about things. Like, share a photo of, I don't know, maybe you went to a coffee shop that day. It's like, share a photo of you sitting at the coffee shop. If you're not comfortable with selfies, show your view from the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Um, there's so many different things you can do with social media that eventually people will gravitate to. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means. I think you can even start with just sharing certain thoughts you have, and definitely staying on top of trends is a good way, especially if you're looking to grow on social media. So if a certain movie's coming out, or there's certain something people are talking about, give your own spin on it, but only if it like fits your brand though, because like if
Yeah.
like something's happening with Kim Kardashian and like you've never talked about Kim Kardashian in your life, it's going
Right.
to be weird for you to be like, I love Kim Kardashian, or like say something about Kim Kardashian. I don't know. But if you can still take that and make it a part of your brand somehow,
Yeah.
cool. But definitely like staying on top of like trending topics, just talking about things that are going on in your day, sharing things that you love. Like maybe you just watched a TV show. There's like the possibilities are literally endless when it comes to you
Right.
know using social media.
For sure. One of the bigger ones that I usually tell is like, instead of like it, it's so easy to just like click on that retweet button, but if you put a little more effort, you can quote tweet it and you say your opinion on that thing while you're
Yes.
retweeting it and you're like adding to it. Um you can also take the extra mile and like, if you're feeling really opinionated about something, make a video about it. Like make like a short little
Mhm.
like 1 to 2 minute video about like how
Yeah.
you really feel about a certain topic that's going on, or a certain thing that's happening to you, to like your friends, to anything. um and just be authentic. That's like the main one. Like, sure,
Exactly.
keep track of like what's trending, keep track of like obviously what's happening in like culture and in your timeline even. But make sure it makes sense. Like Jeff was saying, like if you've never heard of Kim Kardashian, don't just talk about her just because she's trending for some reason during that hour or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
um so yeah, I hope that was helpful for the people watching and listening. If you guys happen to have any questions, we usually have these Q&A portions at the end of our interviews. So if you happen to want to be a part of the Q&A, make sure to watch these live on Twitch as we film them, twitch.tv/Project Ruby. And yeah, people usually chime in with some questions. We've been answering some of them throughout the show even. So yeah. Um. Ooh. Okay. This is a very long comment, and I feel like we must read it because there's a question there, and I feel like we shouldn't miss on the context of it. So Magicile
Perfect.
says a not so hypothetical scenario. My social media on different platforms tend to have a different branding specific to that platform. For example, my silly, raunchier Tumblr personality is different from my Instagram, where people I know IRL follow me. Is there a way to incorporate those discordant assets? They both may be part of my larger brand, but the audiences are very different.
Ooh. Okay.
That is a
Okay.
juicy one.
That is juicy. I can feel the juice dripping
Yes.
from it. Um, that's a you know, it's interesting that you bring that up because social media platforms all operate differently.
Mm-hmm.
So Instagram is going to prefer a certain kind of content compared to Tumblr and Twitter and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily feel like, I mean, I think bottom line is, as long as it's feeling genuine to you and as long as you feel like it's reflecting who you are as your online presence, I think you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Because content that does well on my Twitter, I noticed that it might not do as well on my Instagram. So definitely, you have to figure out how to use each of your social media platforms successfully. And that may mean changing up how you write certain captions or the kind of pictures you share.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you definitely, that is getting at like a certain thing about how social media works. So yeah, my final answer on that is definitely, as long as it's still feeling genuine to you, I don't feel like it's necessarily like the worst to like change up a little bit how you use that social media platform.
Mm-hmm. And you can also have like you don't necessarily have to have one brand across all social media. Like I know people
Right.
who they're not different people obviously, but they have a different persona like if they're on camera than if like maybe they're more sarcastic on Twitter, or maybe they have a more I guess nowadays you can't really have a raunchy Tumblr, but back in the
Right.
day, they could have maybe like a
Mm-hmm.
raunchier social media presence. Like there's people who do that. They have um, like the OnlyFans situation, the Patreon, and all
Right.
that stuff. So obviously you can totally have like it doesn't mean that you're a different person. It doesn't mean that you're fake necessarily, but you can have
Right.
like different persona or a different, I guess, perception of you depending on where you're at. I guess it's kind of like in
Right.
real life how people say that we all wear a mask depending on who we're around. So like if you're with your friends, you're one version of yourself. If you're with your parents, you're a different version of yourself. If you're at work, you're another version of yourself. And it doesn't mean that you're
Mm.
being fake. It's just like you're adapting to your environment, and you're and maybe like different sides of you show themselves in those different environments. You know what I mean?
Right, right. No, that's 100% true. Because I mean, on the technical side of things, like Instagram prefers like the highest quality of photos.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
like people like who are getting like professional model shots are gonna have like good Instagram accounts of things that like maybe they don't have to work as hard on a caption. So maybe like
Yeah.
their thing is, I look really hot and well edited.
Right.
So like your thing on Instagram may be different. People on Twitter may share videos a lot, but you may be better at making funny quips that people like to retweet. Um, I think as long as you're finding something that works for you and you see that it is working for you in the way that you want it to, that's what's the most important about how you use all of your social media platforms.
For sure. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be like so serious to the point like
Mhm.
I know there's like Twitter accounts that are like they blow up like overnight, or even like just in general they have like really good tweets, and their brand, quote unquote, is like their username is like gay twink 72. You know what I mean? Like they don't have like
Right.
a proper like like what you would say like a traditional brand or something that would be like serious or whatever, but like they just have
Right.
that persona on the internet and they're hilarious and everybody retweets their stuff, and it's just it just happens. So it like I feel like as long as like you're taking whatever feels authentic to you and whatever you're good at, and you find that balance between the social media algorithm and your skill set, you could like
Mhm.
really make some really cool things work. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Just and be patient.
Oh, please be patient. I mean, like, I think people, yeah, like streaming, people definitely like they want that instant like success that like I want those like people coming in, and with social media, I want those. I want it's like calm down, it'll
Right?
come.
You're
Just
right.
start developing that presence, start figuring out what it is you want to do with it, and the people will come.
Yeah, just like a perfect example. Like by the time that we're filming this, a really big like meme and internet sensation is the and I oop thing.
Oh my God, right?
And she filmed that original video like years ago. Like it wasn't
Uh-huh.
like she didn't film it last week, and she didn't do it with the intention of it being like a meme or something for people to latch onto. She literally made this video just being herself, ranting, and she this is a video of a drag queen that was on RuPaul's Drag Race. Her name is Jasmine Masters, and she was
My
talking. She
God.
was just ranting on camera with her like webcam or something, and she sat on her balls. There was a moment of her like mid sentence being like, "And I oop," and then people took that like those like seconds of it, and they made it into something that's like now she's like she did an interview recently where she says that like all sorts of celebrities are contacting her, all sorts of like brands want to work with her, and it's like she didn't like think of that level of success when she did it, but she was being herself.
Hmm.
She was like taking her skill set, which is like being funny and having being very opinionated and wording that in a very like entertaining way, and her charisma and all that. She was using all of those things, but she didn't do it to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be viral and I'm going to like be super successful." Like no, she did all those things that we kind of like alluded to, or we literally said it to you, and something just happened out of nowhere. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you never know. Like the patience is key for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. Just keep being yourself.
Yeah.
Good things will come.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really good point. Just because you're not popping doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. Like sometimes
Yes.
like sure, like there's always things that we should reassess. That's also something that I usually tell people that I also need to do more of myself, which is like being able to like if you're streaming, like instead of just looking at your stats for that month, like look at your vods, like look at like maybe
Mm,
you weren't making a lot of eye contact, maybe you were mumbling a lot, or maybe your lighting could be slightly like refined. Like you don't have to get new
mhm.
lights, but like maybe like point your light at a different direction, maybe something different will happen. Just be willing
Yeah.
to like give things a try, and not necessarily because something is wrong, but just to like experiment and to change it up and to see what happens, you know?
Right. Definitely.
Because you don't want to settle, you know? Like you don't want to just be like,
No.
"Oh yeah, I'm doing great. I just some things will just happen." Like no, it has to be a combination of you
Mm,
working hard and improving, and also, you know, that will come as well.
exactly. I think a kiss of death for a lot of content creators, everything well. I think most people who are content creators, if you're not thinking, how can I grow? How can I keep doing things different? How can I change something to keep improving? I feel like most content creators are like that.
Mhm.
And if you're not thinking that way, um, I encourage you to think differently
Right.
because there's
Yeah.
always room for improvement. Even like, you know, even Ninja, I'm sure,
Yeah.
probably has, I'm sure he didn't get to where he was by only like doing things one way. Like you have to like
Exactly.
anyone who gets to be the big like at this big success, like is always constantly evaluating like what they could be doing better. And if
For
you're not
sure.
doing that, because you know, even Beyonce, if she were to put like the
Right?
same kind of album out all the time, like we would be like, okay, I'm bored.
Right?
Like Beyonce, what are you doing? Like she's evolving with the times and she's continuing to do things that will like giving people what they want. So like as long as like
Exactly.
you as a content creator are like constantly evaluating like what can I start doing better? Like what kind of content can I be producing? Like just constantly thinking about what you can be doing better will help you, even though it can be very anxiety inducing. Because don't worry, I've had plenty of those moments.
Right?
Definitely that'll help you in the long run as well.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Like you have to be aware of like even like as a person like some people like meditating, some people like journaling, some people do both. Like
Mhm.
it's a moment for you to reconnect with yourself and be like what, like, maybe I've been feeling really bad lately, but like maybe you just need to reassess, like maybe I haven't been eating properly. Maybe like sometimes
Mm,
obviously that's not going to be the end all be all, but even like with content creation that's the same. It's like maybe it's like a small thing that you didn't notice that you were doing, or maybe I don't know, just like I'm just throwing things out there, but sometimes like smaller things that you're not even aware of, you can like
mm,
look at them and be like, let me try that, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, okay, I'm actually seeing growth from that. Even
exactly.
if it's just a personal growth, even like if your stats stay the same, but you're more proud of your content, then I feel like that's worth it for me. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, Broadway Blonde said this in chat, and it's so important. You'll go crazy if you're constantly looking at your analytics. It's good to be tracking. It's good for tracking and all of it, but it can be blinders for the actual problems.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Definitely with streaming, I think that can be a thing. Because sometimes, sometimes I look back, like I'll feel like, man, I had such a really fun stream today. Like this was
Mm-hmm.
really good time. Chat was active. Like we had so many fun moments. And I'll look at the analytics and maybe it was a lower average view count than normal.
Right.
So like sometimes, I'll sit there and look at it and be like, oh, like that. My initial thought will be, oh, that kind of sucks. But then you got to
Right.
spin it in a point where it's like, well, no, like it was a really good stream. I put out like you have to look at the content overall. I
Yes.
think like
Yes.
if you put out a stream that you are like really proud of, that's what matters the most because people are, you have VODs enabled. People are going to look back on that stream and be like, oh, this was a really fun time. Um,
Exactly.
so yes, I think keeping an eye on your analytics is good because, you'll see whether or not you are growing and whether or not what you are currently doing is working.
Right.
However, if you only focus on those analytics, yes, just like Broadway Blonde said, it can be such a blinder for the actual problem.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're always going to be chasing the algorithm and you're not necessarily chasing self improvement, or you're not
Yes.
necessarily chasing your own value and finding your own value. Because sometimes we think, like, I know, like, I thought I was the shit last year. I was like, yeah, next year if we keep going like this, we're gonna get partner. Like, obviously, I didn't feel
Mm,
like this at every moment of my life, but I feel like every streamer has those moments of like, you see a little bit of growth and you start, I guess, being a little bit more not you don't rely on what you have, but you start being like, oh yeah, I just keep doing what I'm doing and I'm gonna be great, I'm gonna be fine. And
mm,
then like a year later you look back at those streams and you were like, oh my god, I had so much to grow. And like as a
mm,
person, like my content could be way
yes.
better. I feel like I'm way better at interacting with people nowadays than I was like even like a month ago, you know what I mean? So
Yes.
for sure, never get comfortable. That is
Hmm.
definitely the a big deal to think on the internet, because even just like one day you're super successful and the next day like the platform dies. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden like
Hmm.
Instagram goes down and you're like, "Oh, wow, they're, so never get like super comfortable with like what you have, because you never know how tomorrow is going to be." I know that sounds like scary. Like I didn't mean it for it to be scary, but
Well, I mean, it is. It's we we are in the entertainment business, so it's unpredictable.
yeah.
One day we'll have one day we may feel like we had like the best stream ever, and the next day like you may be like, why wasn't this as good?
Right?
You'll always be having thoughts like that, but ultimately, as long as you're always focusing back on the quality of your content and how you can be improving that, I think you'll be on the right track because I think we can always get focused on like, oh, I didn't do well because this, and it might be
Mhm.
something, you know, this tweet didn't get as many interactions. Maybe if you're thinking too much outside of like what your actual content is, I don't think you're really growing as a content creator.
Yeah, for sure.
Like definitely
Absolutely.
like figure out how to use your tools. Like maybe the tweet you did wasn't as engagement, like as in wasn't as good for engagement as it could have been. Maybe whatever stream you were doing that day was something that wasn't necessarily something that would draw people in.
Right?
But I mean, definitely focus a lot on your content and like maybe only a little bit on like the things outside of your content that could be helping.
Exactly, for sure. And like, just because like something is not giving you immediate like recognition, or doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. Like a lot of
Right.
the times, like, okay, what I when I say this is like, maybe like the video that you posted on Twitter, maybe it's hilarious, and so there's nothing wrong with the content. It's like maybe the like your caption could have been better. Maybe you could have
Hmm.
used a different
Hmm.
hashtag, and that's
Right.
sure. Maybe that is something that you can learn, and that's kind of what we're trying to say is like, it's not your content that's inherently wrong. It's sometimes like the way that you present it that like maybe that's
Yes.
why you're not getting viewership, or maybe you're not getting, or like maybe your stream today wasn't as successful as your stream from yesterday because like maybe you just happened to use a hashtag that wasn't being searched that day, or maybe
Yeah.
you just happened to play a game that a lot of people happen to be looking at that day. Like
Right.
there's so many factors. Like the content itself is not necessarily wrong just because people aren't getting to it. Maybe it's the way that you're presenting it, and maybe it's the way that
Right.
that social media platform is working that day. Like sometimes you post something on Twitter, nobody sees it. Sometimes you post it like the next day at the exact time you post it with the same hashtags, with the same everything, and it's way better. Like it's
Hmm.
so many factors. It's so
Right.
unreliable a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So don't
Yeah.
overthink it.
Definitely don't overthink it, and don't be afraid. Oh my God. I feel like so many people have said this, but it's so true. Like, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely like. I mean, I will admit there are some times where I eat something and I'll be like, oh, that caption wasn't as good. Let me delete this and make a different caption.
Oh
Um,
no. Yeah, I've
yeah,
been
and it's
there.
like, I'm trying to tell myself not to do that because it's okay to make mistakes on things like this. Like, of course, as long as it's not like a really big incriminating mistake.
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah.
like, if like, oops, that wasn't quite a caption that maybe worked as well. Like, don't be afraid to like still leave that out there. Don't be afraid to like keep
Yeah.
practicing and developing because we all make mistakes. We all like don't do things perfectly, but I think with more practice in using all your tools and more practice and figuring out how you want to develop yourself as a content creator, you will get to a really good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and that is such a good note to leave on, honestly. Like, yes, period. We
Period.
said it. Yes. So before you go though, thank you so much for being here, by the way.
Thank you for having me. This
um
was so much
it's
fun.
been so much fun. Like I literally was looking at the time and I was like, oh wow. Like time is flying.
It is flying by.
Right? So before we let you go today for the podcast, where can people find you? Feel free to self
You can.
promote. This is your
Oh
time.
my god. Oh
Do
my god. I can self
it.
promo on Project Ruby's channel. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So I'm at Jeff Brutlag everywhere. On Twitter, Twitch. I have a website, jeffbrutlag.com. So all those places, that's where you can find me.
Yes. Any specific like Pride season is coming up? So do you have any specific things that you want to tease, or?
So I haven't actually said this anywhere yet, but I
Ooh.
am. I know you guys are getting the sneak peek. I am going to be a part of a Summer of Pride event
Yeah.
for a development company called Midboss. So they're featuring a bunch of different streamers, and I'll be playing different games that they have. So it's going to be fun. I believe my
Yes.
first stream for that is Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. But
Ooh.
mhm. And then also, I'm going to be raising money for the Trevor Project on my channel all month, starting on Saturday. So
Yes. You guys got
charity.
that exclusive. There you go. Don't ever tell you I don't give you the tea, guys, on this show.
Mm. He gives you the good tea, like
I
like
do.
the high quality, like bougie tea.
Yeah, we try, we try. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Please go check Jeff out. He's such a wonderful person. So go do it. If you want to check out the stream and the podcast and all of my different content, I'm at Project Ruby literally everywhere except for Instagram, which is the Project Ruby. Instagram had to be the one to mess
Who
me up.
took it? Who took it?
I know, right? It's so sad. But anyway, yeah, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Anchor.fm, where you can find all the audio versions of the podcast. Everything is at Project Ruby. So yes, we'll see you on the next episode with another one of your favorite content creators. Until then, please be good to each other and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. So, bye, guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Bye.